People of Reddit, what was the dumbest thing you got punished for in school? We got 25 questions for homework. I did 24 questions but didn't understand question 25. The teacher gave me 20 lines signed by my parents for not doing my homework. Were the lines if I don't understand? I should make something up instead of asking for help. What could possibly go wrong? In 7th grade I found a notebook in the hallway and turned it into my teacher. I was suspended for 3 days because there was a drawing of a centaur holding a pitchfork and they deemed that as gang related. This is in Atlanta. So, no gangs matching that description here. Elementary school. Was in the bathroom stall taking a dump during lunch. Someone runs in and starts kicking all the stall doors into where it becomes a pain for kids my age, at the time. Obviously, to open them. Kerblem. Door swings in toward me just a bit and gets stuck. I'm trying my best to get the damn door open to no avail. Don't remember how long I was in there alone just crying. But one of the lunch aides comes to lock the door to the bathroom for the day. Here's me. Gets me out of there. Then proceeds to yell at me for being in the bathroom at that time. She goes so far as to take me to the office to have my mother called in. Which they do instead of letting me explain myself. And she shows up and I explain myself to her. She gets irate and tears everyone in the school office a new one. No matter what I did from then on. I never had my mother called while I was there. Flip the monitor screen upside down. Control plus alt plus arrow key. Got banned from using any school computer for the rest of the year. One time my best friend at the time and I, both female, exchanged a hug at recess because we were in different classes. One of my teachers sent us to the wall where we had to stand for 30 minutes alone. Because she claimed by hugging we were trying to turn on our male friends. We were in grade 6. Teacher probably had some suppressed feelings. Parent got called in because I farted in class. Some guy pushed his friend down the stairs in elementary and said guy landed on me. Got detention for missing an important lesson while I was out cold in the infirmary. I got a lollipop as an apology for the detention after it was explained though. A big lollipop. In 6th grade the teacher ripped up my assignment in front of the class and gave me detention because I didn't wait until I was home to do my homework. That's messed up. All through my school years I tried to finish my homework in class. Do they want to waste your time? Trying to go to the library during lunch. They said I needed a hall pass. Fine. I went and got one. Then they were upset because the hall pass didn't have an end time on it. But the teacher who gave me the pass was the same class I'd return to after lunch. It was a split period class. And when I tried to show them my schedule to prove that, they sent me to the principal's office for insubordination. I just wanted to do some research for a paper. Jokes on them. That teacher ended up just giving me several pre-signed passes because in his words that is just really dumb. I really don't understand the whole US concept of hall passes. So effing weird. My school forbids students from dyeing their hair. One day after a weekly assembly, they decided to do a spot check. No socks? Punished. No school badge on your breast pocket? Punished. See, my hair is black. But when exposed under the sun, it turns dirt brown. They did a spot check under the sun that day and guess who got punished for dyeing their hair? This was 10 years ago. Throwing grass. They told me it could have landed in someone's throat and shocked them to death. Who the FCK were your teachers? Anti-vaxxers or conspiracy theorists? Yawning. I was in math class and while the teacher was doing a problem, I yawned. Not loudly. Not exaggeratedly. I just covered my mouth and did a silent yawn. Teacher saw and literally stopped teaching and stared me down. I turned red and just sat there and she squared her shoulders and said, "Since you aren't going to apologize for disrespecting me, you can get out of my classroom. It's too boring here anyways for you, I suppose." I was confused and asked why and she said, "You're just too smart to be here." So get out. I went to the office and couldn't tell them why I was in trouble. When the teacher called down, she said I yawned and looked bored. The principal wasn't very happy with her reason and scolded her before sending me back to class, but still. What the FCK? When I was in the 6th grade, I had a doctor's appointment on a test day, so I came in late. My teacher sent me to a neighboring classroom to take the test while they went over the answers. On the very last question, I ended up doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and the teacher of the neighboring classroom happened to look over at me as my pencil was going back and forth between answers. She stopped her whole class and yelled, "Did you just do eeny meeny miny mo?" Me, thinking I had just committed murder, told her no. So she freaked out and called my teacher. Outraged, I had a very nervous walk back to my classroom, and my teacher was just like sup and didn't even mention it. Edit. I wasn't saying it out loud. I was doing it in my head, and she assumed I did it based on my pencil moving back and forth between the two answers. Which makes it even more stupid of a freak out. There were these two sisters who bullied me and my best friend for months. We went to the principal many times and nothing was ever done about it. One day they were following us around after school talking shit, and finally I turned around and said something along the lines of them being fat and to leave us alone. I know it's a shitty comeback, especially compared to all the things they were saying, but whatever. My friend went home and minutes later they jumped me from behind in the main lobby and I got a 2-day suspension for instigating the fight. For answering a question incorrectly. There was this terrible teacher who would make you stand up in the class and say I'm a twit if you answered the question she asked you wrong. It's a terrible thing to instill in kids. To be afraid to make a mistake and to attempt to humiliate them for trying. I was around 8 at the time. Sitting in our school assembly. With everyone singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Little me thinking I was hilarious. Sang out used to laugh and call him names. Like fish face. And then laughed at my amazing wit. My teacher instantly gave me daggers. And tells me I have after school detention. So I'm annoyed sitting in detention. Forced to write out the lyrics to the song over and over. Thinking wow, this woman is passionate about Rudolph. After 45 minutes I mustered up the courage to ask what's so bad about saying fish face. As it turns out she thought I said FCK face. Still had to stay in detention for another half hour. Being bullied. Schools don't know how to deal with bullies and blame the victim instead. Much easier. They don't argue back. I was known as the kid who got his book taken away so he could converse with the others. Also got my book taken away. Would bring a decoy book to give to the teacher. And would read the book inside of the book for the class. In high school I skipped a class that I didn't have. I told the teacher and she agreed that I wasn't even allowed to take that particular class. Not shaving. Catholic school. Boys had to be clean shaven every day. I'm Greek. The company that makes Brillo pads pays us royalties. I'd shave in the morning and have a 5 o'clock shadow by 10 AM. Shortly after lunch I had legit stubble. 2 detentions and a forced dry shaving before I went in one morning. Presented myself to the dean of students to show how nice and cleanly shaven I was and then reported back after lunch with an almost beard. Punishment stopped after that. I don't know what I would have done if the DOS had left the school before graduation. I guess go through it all over again. 5th or 6th grade. I told a friend I liked a girl or had a crush on this girl. He wrote her a love letter, signed my name and slid it in her locker. The next morning I got called to the office. My teacher was there. With another teacher holding the note. Asked me why I done this. I didn't do that, I said. They got my notebook to compare the handwriting. Completely different, but they insisted it was identical. I gave up after about 30 minutes and accepted my punishment of 1 day lunch detention. Eat lunch alone. Whatever. 2 days later I found out who did it. I was spilling all my milk on the grass. I was into serial killers as a teen. It's interesting how the human brain works kind of way. Someone mentioned a rather famous one. Randomly. While we were on break in a class. I said, oh yeah, he's super interesting, went into no details. The teacher says, who is that you're talking about? I said, oh. He was a serial killer. Known for killing young boys. Boom. Trouble. Name written on the board as a troublemaker. Sent to the principal's office. I was also sent to the office by the same teacher because a new student was threatening to shoot me in the head. After she verbally threatened me for a while, she started making shooting motions with her hands when the teacher wasn't looking. Finally I said to her, stop threatening to shoot me. And yep. Said the word shoot, so I got sent to the office. My explanations didn't matter to them. Asking the teacher what I missed the day before. One of the more mentally ill kids decided to chase me down and tackle me by my ankles. I had ice for a day. Turns out he thought I was this kid that was bad-mouthing him. I defended an innocent student from getting suspended. My best friend and I were kicked out of our classroom for smiling at each other. Because smiling at each other is disruptive to the class. Defending myself in a scrap is a classic. How dare you defend yourself? The beatings are intended to prepare you for integration into adult society. As a metaphor for the existential pain you will be forced to accept. We have zero tolerance and demand total obedience. One time my teacher was explaining a math problem on the board and she made an arithmetic mistake. I raised my hand and pointed out the mistake, and she looked at her notes and verified that she had transcribed it correctly. I tried to argue that just because it's written in her notes doesn't mean it's correct and that she should investigate here and now. Unfortunately I was just a kid and couldn't explain that very well. She thought I was being rude and sent me into the hall. Ah. The old I'm an adult. You're the child situation. I f***ing hate them. I remember in the 8th grade I had a nosebleed during recess. And I ran inside to the washroom to get tissues and stop it from bleeding. I got in trouble because I was supposed to ask the teacher first if I can use the washroom. The logic, considering my nose was dripping intense blood. Some teachers are so idiotic. Edit. Oh, just remembered another one. In the 7th grade. Me and my friend had to apologize to the class because we would speak Turkish to each other and it was unacceptable to speak in another language other than English. And my teacher said that's not allowed because she doesn't know what we're saying. However, she said the Italian people can speak Italian because she can understand it. Our teacher withheld us from lunch and gave us a big lecture on how me and my friend are inconsiderate for speaking in another language to each other. My teacher asked me to shut the window behind me. The latch was stiff, so I used a bit more strength and it shut really loudly. I was taken into the hallway and talked to about almost breaking school property. Being a disturbance. Etc. Got a warning. Next level would have been a suspension apparently, and went back to class. When I was in kindergarten, some snot-nosed brat put stickers on the Legos in our classroom. Since I was the only one who really played with the Legos, everyone thought it was me. The teacher yelled at me, "You put stickers on my Legos," and made me sit at my desk for the rest of recess. It was in the middle of the winter, so it was indoor. The whole time I sat at my desk. My teacher stared me down. It wasn't until at least next day or a week later that everyone smartened up and realized it wasn't me who put the stickers on the Legos. In 5th grade, some of my other classmates had this super creative game at recess that had 2 rules. 1. Find the biggest rock. 2. Throw it at whoever the hell you want. I thought if I didn't play I would get hit with a rock, like some kind of idiot. Some kid found a big rock. Hit me in the head with it. And when I told the teacher I needed to see the nurse, I was sent to the principal's office because the kid who threw the rock was a good kid who wouldn't do something like that unprovoked. For doing homework. Ended up being sent to the principal's office for doing calculus homework and studying for the upcoming Calc AP exam during an imposed reading period, which was really homeroom, where they forced us to read non-educational items, Sports Illustrated, Cosmo, etc. To try to increase students' interest in reading for fun. You weren't allowed to do anything other than read during that time. Luckily the principal just laughed at me when I explained why I was sent to him and told me my time was served in the time it took me to walk to the office and back. Edit. Thinking back, I was wrong. He didn't let it go. I got detention. How did I serve my detention? By doing calculus homework, of course. Nothing destroys a kid's interest in reading like being forced to read. Once got in trouble by a teacher I didn't have for having red highlights. It wasn't bold. It was dark reddish brown. And the principal just told me to go back to class. Another time I got in trouble for yawning cause the teacher thought I was bored. I loved that class. No way I was bored. Just tired. I started skipping that class after that. I was in hospital for a broken leg and the teacher put me in detention for missing a lesson. When I tried to explain to her that I broke my leg, she said that it doesn't matter and extended my detention for talking back at it. Wow, I didn't manage for this to explode. My friends and I were having a race to 300, I'm a first time redditor, and you kind strangers helped me a lot. P.S. Getting suspended for skipping class. Finished my work. Got told off for finishing the paper too fast. Teacher gave me extra work. I finished that too. She told me to prove I'd understood it. I answered all her questions about it. She yelled at me. Not myself, but a good friend and classmate. He was across the classroom sharpening his pencil when his desk literally collapsed on itself. He was issued 2 detentions and a referral for destruction of property. To this day I've never seen someone's face as confused and defeated. When I was in kindergarten, my teacher sent me to alternative classroom for eating the honeycomb cereal off of a paper beehive we were making as an activity. FCKU. MRS. Ford. Buddy of mine told the annoying kids in class that I knew how to swear at them in Spanish. Without me knowing. Then during recess the annoying kids started accusing me of having done it. Sure enough. I get pulled out of class later and taken to the principal's office. Where she refused to listen to anything I had to say. I had to take a referral slip home to be signed that I'd been acting up. That was fun. Got busted for alcohol in my room when I wasn't drinking. Background. It was a private university operated by a church. So it was a dry campus. My roommate was throwing a party while I was home recovering from being sick. I was taking antibiotics and was therefore not drinking alcohol that evening. The fact that he was also doing coke with a girl in our bathroom during the party wasn't caught by the RAs. The party was noticed by the RAs and we all got written up for having alcohol in our room on campus. So we all had to go to an anti-alcoholic counseling session. Counselor. Do you promise not to do that anymore? Me. Absolutely. Next time I get written up for alcohol I will make sure that I actually had a drink. Semicolon. I got my one and only caning for not doing my Sotho homework. Sotho is one of the 11 official languages of South Africa and, depending where you are, depends on what language of the local tribesmen you learn in addition to mandatory Afrikaans. This was in Johannesburg. At the end of the year we moved to Cape Town, where the local tribesmen don't speak Sotho. Instead they speak Xhosa. So I got a caning for not doing my homework for a language I've not spoken since 1992. Cleaning up too fast in kindergarten. We pretended a bomb would go off so we had to clean up really fast. Apparently we were being silly and I've been scarred for life ever since. I'm glad that teacher is probably dead by now. Another time I guessed the principal's computer password to log in as them and go on the internet. This was in 1998. Each class had HTTY Max on an intranet, so when they found out I got in HT for hacking. When the school called my parents they just laughed at them. Hung up. Told me not to FCK around and we went for pizza. I had this TTY elementary teacher who punished the entire class for not doing well on a particular test. If test results are highly skewed towards the lower end of the curve, maybe it's the teacher that's the problem and not the class. I got a detention from my music instructor for tuning the timpani drums. He told me I didn't know how expensive those things were and I shouldn't be messing with them. I was in 6th grade and knew more than my music instructor. He only lasted 2 years and was fired due to numerous complaints. FCK that guy. I was in JROTC and a Boy Scout. My parents were very concerned about my spare time. And we had weekly PT days. One day, one of my classmates was literally green. And since it was the end of the workout, I sat him down in the shade and brought him some water. As I'm giving him the sips, my instructor starts yelling at me and him for not lining up with the rest of the flight. He threatened to leave us behind. And just leave us. All without even asking why my friend was physically ill. I got my only high school detention because I forgot to bring one of my socks for pay. It still pains me that I could have got through high school completely detention free if it weren't for a single sock. When I was in kindergarten, my teacher told the class to write about holes and I started writing a paper about black holes in space, but she called a parent-teacher conference because I was supposed to be writing about holes in the ground. But black holes are so much cooler. Getting stabbed by a pen in 1st grade. I got in trouble for that. Completely unwarranted too. He just stabbed me out of nowhere. Raised his hand. And said I punched him. I was bleeding and crying. He was straight-faced. I had never done anything bad in that class. But this kid would capture bugs and burn them to death with a magnifying glass. But I was the bad one. Saying sorry for being late. Being late wasn't a problem at that school, but I got sent out of class for apologizing. My professor said as long as we're in the door when the bell stops, we're here. But we had to stop talking immediately. So, of course, one kid runs in at the bell. Says alright. I made it and the professor says yeah, but you talked and gave him a detention. This teacher also had it in his head that detention was part of the high school experience. Even gave someone a detention on their last day as a senior, when they had never gotten one before. He was a likable guy. Despite this, wasn't malicious. Just strict about the rules. I shook a vending machine for a Snickers bar and got a 1-day suspension. VP asked for the candy bar back. I already ate it, so I dropped the wrapper on his desk. The time I misinterpreted a 10 essay assignment because the written instructions on the board they hand out and the verbal instructions we were given all contradicted each other. I got a 70/300, which dropped my B+ in that class to a D. She literally made it so that one assignment invalidated everything else you did that term. That's when you pour sugar into a gas tank. In 6th grade, my stepmom always left the house at 8:15 to take me and my siblings to school. I always got dropped off last since I'm the oldest. And class starts at 8:35. I was always tardy to class. And since I couldn't drive, being 12 and all, there was nothing I could do about it. Eventually, after I accumulated quite a few tardies, the principal has a talk with me in his office. He was a very strange man, who was always serious. He decided to give me a week's worth of lunch detention for being late to my first hour, when I can't drive. Oh, and I forgot to add, the bus didn't drive by our house. I have a speech impediment that makes it difficult to pronounce the letter R, roticism, and my cadence tone is irregular. It all stems from a car crash I was in as an infant that caused all sorts of problems for me. In my public speaking class, my teacher docked points multiple times for my accent and said I should have gone to speech therapy for it. Sorry, my parents couldn't afford something that is not covered by insurance. Sorry you had the displeasure of listening to me speak normally. Having a large chest with a small waist. I would get harassed by female teachers when I wore hoodies unzipped with a shirt under. When I wore a boat neck sweater. When I wore a tight turtleneck. God forbid I wore a tight t-shirt or tank top in the summer. I had to have a cardigan on year round. Every other girl was in spandex booty shorts, but I was the problem because I was developed. The body image issues I have from them will never, ever go away. Getting sent home after being reamed out for looking inappropriate in front of my entire class will always be something that brings me immense shame. Semicolon. FCK how schools treat their female students. It's disgusting. Detention for a kid trying to talk to me while I was paying full attention to the teacher. I got a detention for wearing sequined ballet flats. Asking questions about the Bible that contradicts common sense. Catholic primary school. Walking backwards in the hall. Middle school. Friend busts out his brand new color display flip phone. This is shortly after green screen Nokia's, and says check out this sweet wallpaper. Full stop. It's of a model in a bikini on a beach. Suddenly a voice behind us shouts pornography. Office. Now. Full stop. It was a teacher that neither of us had, but knew everyone disliked. So we're both in the principal's office watching the principal write whatever it is she needs to jot down when she asks, do you both know why you were sent here? Full stop. My friend and I look at each other like I guess? And principal's just like, you can go. So nothing really happened. And I assume the principal found it as retarded as we did. As for the teacher, screw you Ems. Wigger. There's a reason everyone called you the butt digger.